Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Social Security quarterly hearing with the Social Security Minister and two of the Assistant Ministers. I'm Deputy Mayor Lahegara and the Chair of the Scrutiny panel. Before we introduce all ourselves, I'll just remind that we are under the normal rules that we would be if we are holding the hearing in the States building, but some of us are all working remotely, so we'll move forward and I'll start with my panel.
I'm Deputy Kevin Paplin and I'm Vice Chairman of the panel.
I'm Deputy St John Trevor Poynton and I'm a member of the panel.
I'm Deputy Karina Alves of St Helier District 2 and I'm a member of the panel.
Oh, I was waiting for Deputy Southern. He's not.
I was just going to say, sorry, Minister, Deputy Southern is currently unavailable for this meeting.
Oh, fine. Yes, I'm Judy Martin, Deputy for St Helier number 1 and the Minister for Social Security. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy Jerry Massel, St Saviour number 1, District Longville, Assistant Social Security Minister.
Good afternoon, everyone. Deputy Scott Wickenden, Deputy St Helier District 1 and Assistant Social Security Minister.
Good afternoon, Ian Burns, Director General for Customer and Local Services.
And I'm Suda Hamill, Head Policy at the Strategic Policy and Performance Unit.
Perfect, thank you. I think we've probably got everybody that's likely to speak this afternoon. If anyone else does contribute during the course of this hearing, then I would ask that they introduce themselves prior to doing so that the public are fully aware as to who they are. Okay, I'll kick off first of all in relation to departmental impact and the spending of the Social Security Department. Please, Minister, can you provide us an update on the total departmental spend to date from the 184 million allocated to you as Minister for Social Security?
Judy, you're on mute.
I'll get there in a minute. I've got a breakdown in the benefit spend up to June, income support, other tax funded benefits. Is that what you're looking for, Mary? And obviously long-term care, health insurance fund, etc.
Well, we're looking for the overall spend for the department of the 184 million that was actually allocated to you. So whatever you've spent during the course of the year up to date. Thank you.
Well, up to date, we've spent. It was only allocated 100. Did you say 184 million? I've already spent 208 million under Social Security benefit payments for the 6 months to the 30th of June, and 36 million was on income support, Social Security benefits 129. Health insurance fund 14.5, long-term care 26.6, and that totals 208,868.
Is that including?
Sorry. Yeah, that is the. Sorry, that's the budget. The actual is 208,708. Sorry, it's a few, just slightly under the actuals. Yeah.
Okay, so you've actually spent. What you're saying is that you've spent more than the 184 million.
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of that it would be on income support, because at the highest we had sort of around 900,000 in reserve, and then obviously COVID hit and we found another 1,000 people at least, plus the people already on income support couldn't do the hours that they were doing, so they had to have more money. I think I'm answering the right question. Ian might need to add to that, because you're saying departmental spend and these are benefit spends. I don't want to muddle them up, you know what I mean? Thanks. Have you got anything to add, Ian?
Well, it just might be helpful if the chair could clarify the 184 million you're referring to. Is that from the government plan under the minister?
That would be correct. That would be correct. That would have been the amount of money that was allocated was 184 million to the Social Security Department, and that would have been out of the government plan because obviously that was what the money that they were going to be allocated.
Yeah. I think the numbers that we've given the minister aren't quite matching that total, but they are all budgets that perhaps are held elsewhere in the government plan. It may be the difference perhaps is the £20 million, which is for customer local services, which is the administration of the department. If you add that on to the 184, then you're up around the 208 million the minister was describing. I think the key thing the minister said is that we are for half year, and you'll see this in the half year Treasury report, we're in terms of benefit spend, we're broadly on track against the budget, despite all the variances of coronavirus affecting different levels of benefit spend.
Okay, thank you for that. Just another point. Given the spend so far for 2020, what proportion of that has actually been income support claimants in order to, has it been at the level you would have been expecting following the outbreak of COVID-19?
So is that Judy? Do you want to? Sorry, Minister, did you want to? You're on mute, Minister.
Yeah, go on, Ian. Yeah.
So the half year we're on roughly about 39 million against the original income support budget of 36.5. So we're about at the end of June spending about 2.6 million more on income support, and we're forecasting by the end of the year that we will be spending 10.3 million pounds more than the original budget of 73.3 million.
Okay, thank you.
And I think you asked was what that was that what we expected through COVID? I think
Correct.
We probably expected a bit more than that, even, Mary. It went very high and it came down quite quickly. It's still going down and we're not seeing so many claims. So it's bad to what obviously we had, but we're not as bad as we thought we could have been. I think that was the answer the question you were asking as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At the quarterly hearing on the 5th of May, you stated that you had not yet had discussions about the department's plans to address the financial losses resulting from COVID-19 response. Have you had those discussions yet?
The department's plans for are you talking about the money, the deferrals of Social Security and money's not being collected?
Well, basically, have you just had discussions about the financial losses that the department's had in relation to the COVID-19 responses? Have you had any discussions about how you may, address these matters?
Not in particular, because we at the moment we're still in the mode of trying to do fiscal stimulus, helping the economy. The first 2 quarters were completely frozen. We've now told businesses they've got 2 years. It was looking like a 1 year, but it's 2 years to pay that back. They will start paying these quarters and the last 2 quarters of the year. It's one of those things we can't ask them to pay any more at the moment when we're asking them to sort of keep this money and reinvest it in their business. So we've had discussions. It's again all the big business discussions. How long do we borrow? How long do we make till we even the books? And that's in line with all the other ministers. There'll be more of that actually in the government plan. Thanks.
Okay. Have you made provision for further spending in 2020 in response to COVID-19 without plans to recover the resulting financial losses?
Well, with the people who come on income support, I mean, they must have the money. The plan is, again, what I'm saying, we need to make sure that we're covering the benefits that we're paying. That's been agreed. But no, the budget is increased. I mean, that what pot that's coming out of, Ian can probably tell you, but it's all the pot that Susie's asked for extra money. It's me giving her money from one fund and she gives me money back to pay the benefits, but we're not trying to collect it back off of anybody at the moment.
Yeah, so the Minister's right. In terms of income support, if we're forecasting it's £10.3 million overspent, then there is a business case with the Treasury Minister to provide us that £10.3 million for the 2020. And in the government plan, there will also therefore be an increase to the income support budget for 2021 and beyond, until so that it can obviously there's enough monies to pay out the benefit in line with the forecast of the economic forecasts.
Okay, thank you. Has your department and the functions within your the Minister's remit incurred any debt following the new fiscal stimulus measures?
Not that I can think of. I mean, we've sent out already. I mean, it's not debt, it is a payment, but it just adds to the payment that, you know, we've sent out to all low income and pension plus people an extra £100, but that's because of what they've been through, and also that we want them to spend this money locally. But it will be found. But I wouldn't class it as a debt, Mary. It could be classed as a debt. I wouldn't class it as a debt.
Okay, I'll now move on to efficiencies. As part of the government plan 2020 to 2023, the Customer and Local Services Department was due to make 2.2 million worth of efficiencies in 2020. Please can you advise what proportion of the efficiencies under the Minister's remit have been achieved in 2020 so far?
Well, I think we were completely on track, and we had the 944 as a buffer, and then COVID hit. But we are still achieving, but that, so as you say, this is the extract from the published CLS operational business plan. So that might be, and it's about the new target operating models. Again, that's for CLS, which isn't necessarily, some of my remit comes in there, but it's a lot of other things. So it might be easier for Ian to answer that, as it is his business plan where those efficiencies need to come from.
Yes, so we had I think £2,220,000 of efficiencies to make in 2020, and the largest chunk of that was £944,000, which was a reduction in the income support budget. Just talking about that one specifically, that budget was reduced at the start of the year, and for January, February and March, the income support expenditure was coming in underneath the reduced budget, so that was on track. Obviously, coronavirus has changed that significantly, as we've just been discussing, and with the forecast now going in the other direction. The remaining roughly £1.2 million worth of efficiency savings have all been made, and they've been removed from budgets in 2020. Biggest chunk of that was the target operating model work, which we've spoken about before, but those have all been implemented. Those budget reductions.
So basically, where reductions in non-staff budgets of 0.3 million, they have been achieved.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And finally, from me, before we move to Deputy Alves, what impact will the fiscal stimulus measures have on the Minister's planned efficiencies for the remainder of 2020?
What impact will they have on my efficiencies, the fiscal stimulus?
Yes.
Well, the fiscal stimulus needs to be paid out, and the efficiencies are exactly what Ian says. We've achieved some, but at the same time, the budgets on the other side are going completely up. As I say, with the we're up to, well, go up. They're 3 million over what was forecast, planned for income support. The others are pretty set, like the social security benefits, like pensions and everything like that. They're slightly up as well. The fiscal stimulus is to again help the people to spend. It shouldn't have any effect on my budget, unless we will make, and we're not quite there yet, we will make bids into the fiscal stimulus if we maybe want to target different areas for reskilling or jobs or people to take people on, especially young people, that will be a bid into the pot, and that will all again be in the government plan.
Okay, thank you. I'll now hand over to Karina Alves.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I'm going to be picking up on some of the points in the government plan, starting with financial independence in old age. So, Minister, you recently advised us that D3P Global Pension Consulting was commissioned to undertake scoping work in regard to financial independence in old age. From your initial discussions with D3P concerning their draft report, did you note any specific findings as being of interest or concern?
No, what we saw was a draft, and there was different ways to look at this. It could have been a work-based pension, it could have been different, including our own pension. We'd only got to there, and then I'd invited a few extra ministers. It would have been the economic development minister, but his workload was too busy. This was just before COVID, and Tadia was on the board, and I thought we were making some progress. I mean, there was lots of variations. It could be this, this and this, and obviously to be worth anything, somebody's got to pay. But then COVID, and we had tried one online discussion, but to be fair, I think, you know, their minds were on other things. This was early COVID. There was just, everything was going mad. So, you know, to me, everyone's sort of gone down that work-based pension, and they seem to like that idea. But we didn't get much more forward. I think we had about 3 meetings after January.
Okay, thank you, Minister. And do you have a timeline in place to resume the discussions with D3P about their findings and possible next steps?
It won't be see, this is a bigger picture. We need to have a discussion on, I'm sort of still up for it, but I do not want to spend loads of time, a big report, when again, this will be money. There's only 3 people, well, companies, workers, government, and that's all the same money, really. So it's one of those I'm still thinking about. I knew it was always going to be a very, very tight timetable. I knew Guernsey were a couple of years ahead, and I knew we could look over there and see how that was being taken forward. Well, it's not taken forward, but how it was being received. So that's more of now. I need to have a bit more discussion on that. The timeline, if it is things carry on, we can get started again last quarter or first quarter next year, if that's what we decide to do.
Okay, and finally on this part, we are aware that £27,000 of the 150,000 allocated for 2020 has been spent so far. Are you still due to spend the remaining 123,000 allocated to this project, or have the funds been reallocated as a result of COVID-19?
No, the funds are there, Karina. It's given all the other things I just said. Do I do another? you know, knowing I haven't got help in getting businesses behind me, workers behind me, or even the rest of the assembly behind me. So that's the bigger picture, but the money is still there, so I could resume it. I've got to have a real good think about that one.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to support for home care and carers. You stated that the pilot scheme for 2020 was delayed following the outbreak of COVID-19, which occurred in mid-March. What work had been carried out in 2020 prior to the outbreak of COVID-19?
Well, this is a small group of families who still have adults who need in different sorts of care at home. And it was actually one of my officers and I think an adult social worker who were literally dealing with them family to family, going in homes, explaining, because they've been on this way. If you wanted to get them onto long-term care, it had to be explained. Every family would have a different, possibly an extra expense. It could be some have extra different food that they need, some have extra, their washing needs to be done every day, which, unless they talk to all the families, didn't appreciate that. And obviously we've not, and these being probably a lot of the most vulnerable on the island as well, it had to stop. People didn't want our officers in their home and it couldn't be done on Teams. It's literally going to have to be when it's safe to do so, and we're hoping to get started very, very early. It's not that many families, we know they know who we are and we know who they are. Hopefully we get that started in early 21.
Okay, so has the delay of the pilot scheme incurred any additional costs, or has it just been simply paused?
It's just been simply paused because there will be, if it had all crossed over and it had worked, then there would have been more money, but that was a small budget actually, but it's not been spent and it hasn't cost anything not to do. It's just staying as they were for another few months, or last 6 months. We would have liked to seen it in like the third quarter of this year, but it's impossible.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to move on to the disability strategy and community support. You recently advised that the recruitment of 2 additional staff members to support the work on the disability strategy was paused due to COVID-19 and that it has only just recommenced. Was any interim support for the disability sector made available following the freeze on recruitment?
Not that I know. I mean, that, you know, lots of other than maybe helping organisations, which, you know, through our community group, Karina, that, you know, if they were losing the people that they normally would work, they would be given other volunteers. But no, these 2 people are sorely needed and they will start interviews. And I think there's a third, I might be wrong, who will be in sport, but yeah, so they've got I think there's 3 and one's in sport, but once they get started, that's where we should have been like at the beginning of the year, but again, it's the end of August, we're going to start interviewing.
Okay, thank you, and that's all from me at the moment. We'll pass on to Deputy Kevin Pamplin. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, you nearly caught me there, Minister. Okay, so my line of questioning is going to be around the COVID-19 response, and I know you've touched upon that a little bit. And because we're in States Assembly recess, what we've tried to do here is play devil's advocate, think of questions that members might have until we get to the Assembly. So starting with the obvious, the reducing of the social security contributions first. Again, would greater fiscal stimulus be achieved by investing the money into a more generous voucher scheme, the £100, instead of doing the contributions? Your thoughts?
Well, the economic advisor, and you know, this was all new stuff to me, and you know, why you give more money in it if save the economy, but so he wanted a package, and so the vouchers will be having to be spent, that's fine in the local economy. but this makes people feel in their pay packet, weekly or monthly, which is always monthly now, that they're going to have a little bit more money in their pocket. It's give them confidence to spend in the economy. They know when it's happening, they know it's for 9 months, and they can plan better. And yeah, it's not cheap. I think it's costing the department 26 million, and about eight of that, or yeah, 3/8 system. Yeah, that'd be right. 8 in 2020, and then the rest. But yeah, it wasn't hard to convince me once I actually got the why you would be giving money away at a time when you've never spent so much in the last 3 months. But this is the time that the confidence, the businesses need to know that they are there. People are going to do that little bathroom job, keep that small builder going, etc., etc., etc. So that was just one of the packages, and I was quite happy with it. Although I'm not getting the money, it is what it is. It's not coming back. It's an actual cut for 9 months, and it will be money in the workers' pockets.
Mm. Okay, so putting it another way, so why could you not target the reduction in social security contributions at the average earnings for workers in sectors maybe hardest hit by the outbreak and what we've been going through, so hospitality and retail, and actually cut the contributions where it could really help those who really feeling the pinch?
Well, I'm not saying though it's sector. I think sector specific, we will need some extras, but again, the economy and the thing is keep it simple. So everyone gets the cut, the workers, but we may need to do more into industries with the other fiscal stimulus over the next few coming months, which hasn't been finalised yet. But that just makes it where, would it be sector specific? Would it be and there's sectors within sectors, and this is, so we're not doing the businesses, we're doing the workers. So we're giving it to the workers where they can choose to spend it in another business, hopefully, and it's the circle of life, it keeps going round.
As you just touched upon, my next question there is, why was it discussed, or why was it ruled out not giving a reduction to employee contributions and not employees' contributions too? You just touched upon it there. Was it explored, and why was that ruled out?
Well, on the panel that I've got the experts on, apparently not so. They thought the one for the employees would be good. It came then down to the political oversight group. Could I work with that? Yeah, I mean, again, once it was completely explained to me. Yeah, so there may have been discussions and it was ruled out, but it never came to me as a would the minister, from officers or anyone else, would the minister be able to do this? Could she live with it, etc., etc. So I'm not saying there wasn't discussions. Ian has put his light on, so he might light on in the game now. He might. I think Ian might have a few more.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's okay. So obviously the ministers were also discussing at the same time about the co-funded payroll scheme, which has been a tremendous success in keeping people in work and encouraging business to still be able to operate. And I think that's the other part of it, is that it was always anticipated that the co-funded payroll scheme perhaps would carry on, how long it would carry on for and in what degree. But that's obviously supporting employers, keeping their costs and being able to keep people employed. So cutting employers' contributions is the same sort of effect as the co-funded payroll scheme, albeit the co-funded payroll scheme is more targeted at the sectors who perhaps need the most help, as you questioned earlier on, Deputy. So I think it's ministers have the whole rounded package to have a look at, and it's a combination of things we're trying to do: support businesses, support livelihoods, but also create confidence, as the minister said, in that people will carry on spending and support the local economy.
I guess there's the rub, isn't it? Because none of us have a crystal ball here what the outcomes will be. This is something we've never seen before. That if wages don't go up or go down effectively, or people, because they are nervous, we don't know what the winter's going to do, that they don't spend the money. And equally, then people get used to the reduction and then suddenly it jumps back up. And if we're still in a bit of a bind economic wise and people are still feeling the pinch, will you then make a decision to continue it, or how would you phase it back in, I guess, if people are still struggling?
Well, the recommendation, the regulations that are coming to the Assembly put the 9 months in. Again, as you say, nothing's. We've been, like you say, we've had to watch this right from the beginning, not knowing everybody a lot of, you know, how it will react, how people will react. But this is what I'm told by the economic advisor and the panel, that if you give a bit more to people, they will spend it in the local economy. The vouchers is definite. So it's you know, and again, I think most people get it. It is their local economy as well as you know, it doesn't do anything if you don't go and spend now. When you feel you might want to go and have a treat, those firms might not be there as easy as that. But you can't force people to spend it. You're right. If they save it, but then again, if they're not spent, if it's not working in 9 months, I wouldn't extend it. Why would I if it's not working?
Yes, fair enough. And obviously you touched upon it earlier, but £26 million it's costing, as you described. What impact does that have on the sustainability of the fund, and I guess that's been risk tested as well?
Cool. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yeah, I mean, we're in a really fortunate position with the Social Security Reserve Fund, and you know, if they persuaded me that 26 million lost now can keep your economy and not see it just, you know, really go bad, it's money well spent. But then when they go up, and if the economy then starts booming, it probably won't take that long to, you know, we'd never say get it back straight away, but we don't. It's the difference of keeping people in work or seeing another few thousand possibly on income support, which is nobody wants that. It's not good for anyone's morale. It's not good for anyone's health, actually. And it's certainly not good for the economy, because it's so proven that some people have come out of work, especially if they had a small company and then they find themselves, you know, they're on benefits. It's a hard slog to get back there. So it's just trying to keep the economy going. The FPP, I've only read a few pages, said we're not doing too bad because of Jersey being Jersey. So, and, you know, let's hope that they're right. They normally are.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that, won't we? Okay, let's move on to, you mentioned income support there. One of the things that has happened already is the payments to low-income households. Before I go into my question, could either you or Ian give us an update on how many payments have been processed? And I guess it's really difficult, but how do you know that they've been claimed, because they've been direct payments? And for those people who don't have bank accounts, so if you just bring us up to date on how it's gone, how much money's gone out, and how much you think is being used so far.
You're talking about the extra £100 per person in each income support and pension plus, yeah?
Yeah, that's already gone
well,
out.
I've literally just come back on the island on Monday and I've just had an update, so Ian will be the one, but it's sounding brilliant and we've had some lovely letters, but you know, but Ian can tell you if anything went wrong. But they're about one of the easiest people to get to. We have all their details, but Ian might know if there's anyone with, you know, that was a bit awkward. Ian?
Yeah, so the minister's right. It's gone very well. We were able to make the payments on, I think they landed on the 24th of July. They've gone straight into where we have bank accounts, which is the vast majority of people on income support and pension plus. We were able to make payments straight into people's bank accounts, and we know that's been received because people have been calling us up and telling us what they're spending it on and thanking, etc. Them asking us to pass on thanks to the minister for making the payments. There's a small group of people who don't receive their monies via bank accounts for lots of different reasons. Some of them receive checks, some of them still receive it in small amounts of cash. And where we have safeguarding concerns, again, we wouldn't where we have known individuals with safeguarding concerns, we wouldn't give it out to them in one go. And we've managed about 300 people separately out of the main sort of payment run. It's gone to 12,500 people roughly. It's the remaining people who are receiving it in smaller amounts have obviously now received that money, as far as I'm aware, it's gone very well. And as the minister said, we've been getting people writing to us thanking, asking us to pass some thanks to the minister for the payment. So that was relatively straightforward.
That's always good to hear.
And easy to replicate if it was needed to, obviously.
You've just preempted my next question, but yes, so if there was any left over or not claimed, would you then think about maybe giving £100 to people on long-term incapacity benefits, or those others that may need support during this crisis? Or because how well this has gone, you would look to target other people who may really benefit from this at this time who are also struggling? Minister.
I'd look at any. I don't think there'd be any necessarily any over, because we have literally found the people we expected. We knew how many people are on income support, children, and the pension plus. So I don't think any over. If there's a case that we've missed somebody, I mean, those people will get the other £100 voucher. What should they have had this as well? I can look into that. I don't know how many people you're talking about, and you know, though. We picked income support and the pension plus because we knew, especially income support, because a lot of them have lost. So that might not be a lot of money, but say they were getting half income support and half wages, they would always be a little bit better off, because when they were earning, they keep the 26 pence in the pound. So then their hours dropped because they couldn't work. So we knew that those families had really, like, you know, lost quite a bit. And even though that they were getting their benefits, so we targeted them, and then they'll get the other voucher as well. But it's on long-term incapacity, you said.
Yeah, so if anybody claiming long-term incapacity or any additional support really from Social Security, whatever that is, would it be something you'd look at and see if there is an ability to support those people who are equally struggling?
I won't not look at it. I hadn't even thought about that one until you've mentioned it today, Kevin, and say, is it how many people are on it, how many people are quite managing and have other income, or how many people are struggling? We can look into that for you. Not a problem. Absolutely, I'll look at that.
If I can just jump in, so obviously there are quite a number of income support claimants who will be receiving long-term incapacity payments as well, and so they would have obviously benefited from the £100 per head. Long-term incapacity allowance isn't a means tested benefit, so that obviously covers a wide range of the population, as long as people have paid in contributions in the past. So the minister's action by targeting those on the lowest incomes will have picked up people who are struggling the most, including those who may have been already also on long-term incapacity allowance.
So if there was somebody who just fell out of the system, so to speak, or that they should contact the department, and it's something you'd look at, that maybe if they do meet the criteria for whatever reason, that possibly.
Yeah, so I mean, if people are struggling, they should definitely check out whether they can claim income support and get the financial support that's available to them. Absolutely, they should give us a call.
Okay, yeah, well, I think that's a good message. Just some feedback we've been getting from people on long-term capacity, and it's always a tricky one because people don't want to seem like they're looking for handouts, and it's a very personal thing. But obviously, if they've missed out the threshold for the £100 that's gone in income support, I can see where they're coming from. But that's good. That's good news. And I guess the last question on the payment of £100 to low-income families is there's no guarantee, of course, that that money could be spent locally because it's gone into the bank account. That person might use it to go shopping online or whatever. So just to reiterate again, this payment is not specifically there for targeted to the local economy because it's gone into somebody's bank account, therefore they can use their card online and purchase online. It's to give some respite, I guess you would argue, instead of, I mean, obviously they could spend it locally, but just a bit of clarity on that, because obviously it's a slightly different thing to the thing we're going to talk about in a minute.
Well, we sent it out, so it said, what was the actual wording on the letters, Ian? It was local. You're right, it was money, but we said something. But if they boosted something and they spent £100 online, that gives them still an extra 100 in their pocket to spend on the school shoes, the food, or whatever, you know. So we did, you know, that was the one. We wanted to get some money out to the people with lowest incomes, most affected. How can we do it? We weren't ready with the vouchers, but they will get the vouchers, and that will be all local. And it was, you know, yes, I think the chief economist says it's a leak. I think he called it leakage. But at the end of the day, most lower income spend all their money, and the majority will be local. It's just the way it is. So it just gives them a bit more to spend locally.
And finally on just sorry.
Can I quickly cut in, because there's something you said earlier that that you're getting a lot of feedback from people on long-term incapacity that are struggling or the likes. Would you be able to, as a panel, share that or go back to those people and see if you can share that information with us, because that'd be really helpful for us to go and target?
Yeah, and on that point, some of the charities as well who support people with long-term disabilities and stuff. I'm quite happy to orchestrate some of that, because obviously they've come to me with my connections with charities. So yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. I guess the final on this one is, how do you capture the success of something in terms of, I mean, did you say when you told the people, like you just described, this is you're getting this money and you can, obviously it's to help the economy, but it's money in your account, is the way to sort of capture how it's been successfully and go back to those people and say, oh, we're just touching base. How did you spend your money? Did you use it locally? Did you not? Just to sort of gauge the response from an actual point of view in terms of, and it's great you've had good feedback, but do you know what I mean? Targeted feedback and where that money went and how it was used.
Ian, have we got any plans to do that? But I think the economists will say the proof will be in the pudding when the economy just carries on going, and that, you know, these people are spending locally, they're spending the extra money locally, and then the £100 to be spent locally. I don't know how many, I mean, it was a few thousand people. I don't know if we write to them and ask them how they spend their money. Seems a bit of an intrusion, but some sort of survey, if you think that would give us, I'm not sure it would give us everything. We're doing a survey already going out at the moment from another, I've got it written down somewhere, but that might be a question. I think it's already gone out, but what would you think on that, Ian, about asking people how they spent their extra money?
Well, I think you've covered it already, Minister. That the advice is that low-income households tend to spend all their income, so there's no real question that people have saved it, and the letters, the messaging that went out was to spend it locally, spend it with your favourite business, local business. So the chief economist Nick Vaughan would say that people will spend it, and that's so the feedback we've had, if people have spent it. It's a different question with the £100 card, which because we should have some better data on that scheme and understanding what sort of areas that's been spent on Ireland.
Okay, good stuff. Let's quickly, for me, touch on that £100 voucher. First question is, you're bringing the social security contributions to the Assembly. Well, that's obvious because there's regulations. We have to debate that, but not the £100 voucher. And I guess this has been a government decision anyway. Why is that? Why was the 100 card stimulus? Because it's quite unique to the island as well. Do you intend seeing it coming to the Assembly, or is it just now down the train and it's going to happen?
Well, things that come to the Assembly, like the regular, must come to the Assembly. The everything, you know, it's timely and targeted, and it was one. It's unique to Jersey, but when the economists were looking around the world, there was a couple of other countries doing similar, and it was like, oh, you know, this could really be work in Jersey. It could be targeted. Business can work with it. Like when these vouchers go out, if I was a business, I would be targeting that 100 and giving you 110's worth of goods for overnight stay with a breakfast or something. You know what I mean? But it's something they could really work with. Need to go to the Assembly? It doesn't. You know, it's something that the fiscal group, Treasury, I was on that group, officers said, you know, tax group, we all went back and said, yeah, this is part of the package, should work, and we hope to have it in before we sit in the Assembly. So.
Very clear. Some quick fire questions here. Can you provide us updates on how it's going to work? How are they going to be distributed to the island so everybody gets their voucher and then monitored? Because obviously we don't want people claiming other people's vouchers and somebody using their child's instead of theirs. Will they be named? Can you give us a bit of an update on how it's going to work? Oh, you're muted, Minister.
Oh yeah, I did it wrong then. Ian's going to have to give you the operational part of it, because I literally came back on island and say I will get an update tomorrow at my social security, but him and his officers are he's got the policy is to get it out to everybody, and he might not have to give me an update tomorrow because he's going to tell me now how it's exactly going to work, aren't you, Ian?
No pressure.
I'll do my best. We're still working on the exact final details, but broadly, we are looking to send cards to all adults on the island that we have address details for, and we're working with colleagues in the health department and tax department to ensure that our data quality is as high as it possibly can be. And using obviously the last recent addresses. That's harder than it sounds, but we're working hard to make sure that we can give as many people their cards directly. We wanted very much to avoid the need for islanders to apply for the card, because that would create a barrier for many in between being able to get access to the card and the £100, and therefore the whole purpose of the scheme, which is to create fiscal stimulus and energy and confidence across the island. Therefore, we're trying to send as many people as possible a card. There will be a sort of backup application process if somebody has, potentially been missed out for whatever reason. So they'll still be able to get a card in the 2-month period. We are looking at the distribution methods for children, which is slightly different, both school-age children and also children under school age. We're still finalising those details, but we have a number of options there potentially around those cards, and they could be quite different in terms of their operation, as well as distribution methods. But again, we're trying to avoid people having to apply for cards for adults or for children of any age.
And quickly, will there be exceptions to this voucher? So, i.e., they will not be allowed to use in bookies or other areas we don't want people to maybe use it for the wrong reason, so to speak? Will it be sort of barred, so you tap it and it just won't be accepted, something like that?
So the council ministers have given us a steer, which is to try and make the cards as open as possible, because that will give us the best distribution of fiscal stimulus activity across the island. And of course, there is a hope also that people spend more than £100 when they're doing various things. So there's the wider it can be spread, the better. But the key benefits of using a card is that people can use it on smaller purchases as well, rather than be concentrated around lump sum vouchers. But with the card also, we get very good data on where things are being spent, which sectors it's being spent on, and that will be very helpful going forward, I think, in terms of understanding how the money's being spent. The £11 million has been spent in the economy. The cards will be restricted, so they can only be used geographically in Jersey, and they won't allow online purchases as well. Also the money, although there will be a PIN number with the card, you won't be able to withdraw out cash. What you will be able to do though is use the PIN number to check the balance on the card.
Very good. Thanks for that. Final questions for me, Minister. So the sort of feedback we're seeing from all walks of life is there are some sectors of the island who are simply saying, we don't need this, we don't want this. And so various options are being discussed. We're seeing it playing out, giving it to charities, not accepting it or not. Could it be that actually this could have been means tested, so therefore it's targeted to, the middle Jersey workers and stuff, and that higher bracket of individuals who simply say don't want it, that would put more back in the pot, and then maybe you could have targeted, I don't know, £200 to targeted families. Is that something is it too late to rethink that and how to go about that?
Well, I think I had this question asked me. COVID didn't means test, and we've got so many middle Jersey. Where would you cut it off? I mean, income support is quite a low income, depending. Then is it two couples with two children? It gets very complicated, and if you've got to start means testing, you've got to start going for every. is it 2 children and a joint income of 60, 70,000? Do they own a house? Have they actually got a mortgage, or have they bought the house outright? It just got really, really. Yes, we have some millionaires and they can donate some parts, they can buy things and give them to charities, they can do this. They can even give it back. Now, look, if they want to give it back, then there's not a problem. See how many give it back and redistribute the money that was on them. But it was just as being everything. You start mean test in the middle, Kevin, and it's, oh, look, those always get everything and we never get nothing. And I say, it just seemed easier. Is you're 2.5, you know, 2 adults, 2 children, just give them all the 100. There'll be some innovative ways they're going to spend it. Everyone thought the kids were going to go out to Bambola. Well, my kids, I know, would treat me to a meal, and they wouldn't get there. They would treat me to a meal. That kids are generous, kids are innovative, and as I say, who might have been having quite a good time of it last year has seen some real damage done to their businesses. And I think we are targeting right. We will be giving it obviously to a few people, the rich, as you call them. I'm sure they will find a way to get it to the right people. And if not, just say to send it back. Now, if we end up with quite a few back, we can rethink where we can re-put that money.
I think that's the key point, isn't it? Because what you don't want is the money sat out on the island not being spent. And let's be honest, on this island, people have very busy lives, or people just forget it's there. And is there a way you can follow that up and say, look, we've noticed you're not spending that money. If you're not going to send it, just the first port of call is give it back to us. Well,
from memory, Kevin, the cards are only operational for 2 months, isn't it? 8 weeks. So, you know, then the money would disappear off of them. The money wouldn't have been spent. So then we could probably think about we would know who they were. But this is the beauty of it as well. It's time limited, so they don't. How many times, I'm sorry, somebody, I love them, has bought me a Christmas voucher out of a lovely shop, and I mean to go in there. And I go in there, I didn't realise it was a year and a month later, and they've gone out of it. Apparently that's not legal, but I don't know, that because you've actually spent money buying it, but they do. So it's, you know, it's to get people out in town buzzing, spending and everything. And they've got, is it 2 months in? We did talk about 3, but I think we went back to 2, didn't we?
Yeah, so if I can just build upon what you said there, Minister, the cards, one of the other things the council ministers asked us to look at when we were trying to work out how we might do this was that the cards would actually potentially be reusable. So the cards themselves will have a much longer, like in your normal sort of credit card, will have a much longer expiry date. But with these cards, we can deposit money in them, the cards at the beginning in September, and then at the end of October, when the 2 months is up, we will just remove all remaining balances from the cards. Thus, we encouraging people to spend it. And depending how much money then is available, we obviously the council ministers will consider how that's best used to help deliver the priorities of the fiscal stimulus programme. But that therefore creates that 2-month window, but also hopefully, you know, maybe opens up options to, if it works, to do this again and reuse the cards perhaps in 2021 maybe. So yeah, there's quite a bit to work through, as you can see. We're on track. And we're looking at the moment we're running a campaign to help make sure that people, if they've moved address and haven't told government, then they should do so, and we are encouraging people to do that at the moment.
You just reminded me there, Minister, the critics of this scheme, which is fine because it's, again, playing devil's advocate here, there are obviously people who like it, but the critics are saying it doesn't go targeted enough, that actually we know the industries who are really struggling, don't we? Hospitality, those sort of industries. Could you arguably say, look, can we target it even more? How could you limit it? Or I guess it's difficult, I understand it, but again, how could you say to businesses, if you want to be into this scheme, you really want to buy in, maybe do it that way, instead of it being spent and it goes off island. So I'm just playing devil's advocate, and how could it be more targeted, or is it just we haven't got enough time really because you want it out by September?
It's not about we haven't got enough time. Everyone says we all know hospitality, but some of the hospitality is done better than others. They were doing lots of takeaways and they were doing this. It's your small, your small beauty shops, your coffee shops, retailing, WH Smith on our island. It's a chain that they're laying off 1,200, is it what? Anyway, loads of employees. All has a knock-on effect. So yes, there's going to be some that are going to be worse. But again, targeting with, you can't just say retail, can't just say hospitality, because do you mean pubs that have been doing quite well since they opened? Is it hotel stays? Yeah, and did we have time? Because while we're sitting, it's a bit like fiddling while Rome burns, and we ain't got no economy, and we should have targeted there. It's got to be the economist said you've got to get it out there. This is the time. Start the payroll scheme starts sort of going away a bit. And it's got to be there. Gives people, same as the cut in the social security. It's all got to be in the pockets. The confidence to go and spend, or just sit there with it in your pocket. And then the economy, honestly, they convinced me won't do very well. So yeah, simple. And again, it's businesses, as I say, once we've given it out, I think the businesses should be doing the deals, and they are businessmen. I'm only a social security minister, never run a business. A fish stall outside a pub when I was about 19 for about 2 years, but loved every minute.
Can I just add in? I think this voucher scheme is definitely about trying to help local businesses, whatever, because all local businesses, whether they be, like you mentioned earlier, a betting shop or something, all employ people. So they always employ staff, and by giving this to do something in the economy and saying spend it in the economy, wherever it goes, it will help people keep jobs and at the same time give people something for it as well. So I think that's where, if you target too hard, you're penalising. And we know from things like the co-funded payroll scheme, let's look at the Jersey Gas, for instance, when you start putting barriers onto this kind of help, and where it can go, then you get an awful lot of trouble in other areas that you might not foresee, Deputy.
Yeah, and if I can just add into that, I think when we talk about fiscal stimulus, it's part of a package. There are always going to be different elements, and as you picked on, part of it will be redistributed, which has happened with what we've done already. As Scott's talked about, it's about jobs, and the other bit which the voucher scheme is particularly good for, and it is a bit of behavioural psychology. It's about giving people the confidence, get back out into town, into a restaurant, all those kind of behaviours that we kind of abandoned for the last couple of months. Again, it's trying to encourage that, because again, going out meeting friends in restaurants and everything, and therefore that doesn't really matter what your income is. If you want to encourage that behaviour and get people back into those processes, obviously safely with keeping social distancing and taking the appropriate mitigations. But again, it's trying to encourage people to go back into those behaviours that encourage our economy. So it's not just a case of being something being redistributed when looking at fiscal stimulus. It is trying to achieve different aims. So I hope that clarifies.
Yeah, good. I think it's just good to have these open conversations, because I think it's new for everybody, and it's really important that it stays on the island and it is used in local businesses and people feel confident. So I think it was a good point. And on that, and feeling confident and talking about friends, let's head to St John now and hand over to Deputy Trevor Poynton, who will take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Pamblin. Thank you. I'm muted.
Yeah.
I'm muted. I was just saying thank you to Deputy Pamplin for that brilliant introduction. Minister, my job here today is to talk about Cress. I was wondering, for the sake of the people watching and listening, if you could explain what the acronym Cress means and why the arrangement, or what group of people was the arrangement created for?
So it's COVID related. Oh, I could just say Crest now. COVID related. I can't. Scheme.
Shall I help out?
Yeah, go on. I can't. I called it Crest for so long.
It's COVID related emergency support scheme.
That's it. I knew the last was scheme. Thank you, Sue. And sorry, the second part of the question, Trevor, was?
The second part of the question was, for what group of people was this arrangement put into place? You're muted.
About 2-3 weeks, might have been 4 weeks before we knew this was going to hit bad, and then we knew that flights were stopping. I was asked questions. Do I want people under 5 years to do X, Y, I said, and do I want to give something? I went yes. So I didn't want people to automatically go on income support because it's been a qualifying period for a long time. So then there was this scheme which I had to go to council and minister. So basically it was everybody who had been here in March 2020, and they may not have even worked, I don't think, but they were here. They had, when I say not work, they were signing up to work, but COVID had hit and the business they were going to work in was shut down. So that was it. Some on average, I think majority of people have been here a year or two. There was a few, not many, that had been sort of nearer the 5 years, but like around 4.5. But that was the people it was targeted to help, who had lost their jobs.
Well, thanks for that, Minister. And we really want to bring ourselves up to date with the way the scheme has been working. Could you give us a breakdown of the current numbers of people in receipt of the CREST payment?
I thought I had up to date, but I've got 470, and I don't think that's right. I think that's the people who registered right at the beginning. We shut the scheme to new people on the 1st of August, and it shuts completely on the 30th of August, or the 31st. And Ian, have you got the up-to-date numbers? Because I thought I had them. I know they're going down. They've gone down a lot from the beginning because a lot of people are finding work, and some are actually now returned home because of the flights. Thanks.
Yes, so we're I think about 120 to 110 claims at the moment. It's dropped right down. People have been returning to work as employers have picked up activity. And also, as the Minister said, some people have gone back to be with their families. So the combination of the two things has brought this point. I think the last time we checked, actually, I think pretty much everybody who's claiming CREST, there's no restrictions on anybody getting home at the moment if they wanted to. But the scheme, as the Minister says, is due to is now closed to new entrants and will close at the end of August. We're speaking to CREST claimants, all of them, to make sure that they've got plans, they are aware of this, and that they are taking the necessary steps to be able to support themselves at the end of August. Obviously, CREST payments are only providing a certain level of actual financial support, so they've been supporting themselves anyway throughout the period via a number of different ways. But yeah, the scheme is currently planned to close at the end of August.
Yes, of course, but there was a time when you were going to close it down at the end of June, was there not?
Oh,
and you extended the scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. As it was like 1st of April to the end of June, a 3-month scheme, like originally the co-funded payroll. But obviously, we didn't know how long COVID, and there was no flights. You know, the majority of those people who were claiming were stuck here. If they could have gone before COVID, they would have, but their countries had shut down. So yeah, it was. No, I couldn't shut it then when it weren't getting more people on it, but they weren't getting off of it. So we had that 470 to start with, and then it sort of dipped, but. No, so we took the decision to extend it to the end of August. We were writing, as Ian says, and we are constantly in contact, reminding them that this benefit or this support will be going, and that's I knew, that's why I knew the 470 was right. It was just over the 120 claims at the moment, and then it's, you know, it's still early. They may get a job. They might be still thinking about their future. I don't know what they're going to be doing, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so that for that extended period, Minister, could you tell us how many people responded to your efforts to get them to inform them about CRESS? How many people actually applied during that month between the 30th of June and the 31st of July?
Well, they went down. We may have the figures have been going down since the 1st of April. So April, May, and June, and then they've been going down. Is that, sorry, I'm not quite clear.
Just really the numbers that had applied, and if you're saying they're going down, the numbers are possibly going down because as the ports opened, people were able to get off the island, and some people will have found jobs as well, which is what you were just saying.
Yeah, so it's gone down. Obviously, nobody's applied, or if they have applied, they've been told there's no from the 1st of August. But it stands at 120. And I think at its highest it was 470. So, but I couldn't have shut it at the end of June, definitely. There wasn't, we didn't open the ports till I think the 12th of July, and some of the other countries are a lot more, you know, they've got to get to wherever they've got to get to. So end of August seems to be working okay. Again, I've got the minister, if something really, you know, curveball comes from somewhere, I've got permission from COM to sort of look at it again, but it's going the right way that we thought it would, and most people can leave, and the majority are getting the jobs that they came here for, or that they've been doing the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Okay, for those that are in jobs or were claiming CRESS or are claiming CRESS, do you know how many of those people are actually accommodated by their employer or at all?
I don't. Ian, is that the sort of thing we keep when they apply? Is it on the application form?
We would have had their address, yes, and some of those addresses would have been registered with hotels or accommodation, but I don't have that with us, and we've been asked this question previously in a more general sense, and it's been very difficult to, well, we haven't been able to get the information because many of the addresses just look like normal addresses, but they're actually in sort of tied accommodation. Sue's got a light on though, so she's perhaps jumping in.
I was going to say, when we did try to look at it, I appreciate what you just said, is that you can't tell all of them, but about 1 in 5 people were looked, as you say, were obviously in staff accommodation. But Ian's point is absolutely important, that you can't necessarily tell by looking at somebody's address.
Okay, and the follow-on from that is, are you aware of anyone that's become homeless because of the inability to work and the inability of CRESS to support them to a level that may keep them in accommodation?
Not at the moment. We have had meetings with the Housing Minister and his team through the Community Again support group in the height of COVID. And don't forget, the rents and the restrictions are there till September. Again, a lot of this is tied accommodation, and it doesn't cover the residential law that Sam is working under, so you can't evict. But I've heard I think there's a few people who have become homeless, but not because they weren't on CRESS or they weren't working, but they're very individual cases. So to us, no, but there are some, but more, you'd find out more detail from the Housing Minister and the team, and so there's different issues. Some of these people have got different issues, but they still need a home. Okay.
Now that the ports are open and the scheme ends at the end of August, are you anticipating a significant number of people leaving the island yet again?
Well, people are I mean, out of so it was 470 and we've got 120. Some would have just come off of it and started work. Some would have just come off of it and gone home if they've saved the money, or family might have sent them fares. We've had a few who have literally, I think these are the people who did come here, couldn't work, so they had no money other than Crest, and they were on a lower amount that we've repatriated. You know, everyone's looked into their finances and they want to go home, but it's not in the hundreds, is it? It's a handful of people.
I think Minister, you've supported about just roughly 25 to 30 people, I think, to get home and financially. But obviously, of the remaining people left, I think the general consensus is they want to stay on the island, and they're obviously keen to find work, and we are helping them find work as well. But I don't think from the latest intelligence from the team is that there's many people planning on going home, although that clearly is an option, and there is no current travel restrictions stopping people going home.
Okay, thanks for that. Of those people that you did repatriate, did the funds come out of the funds available to the Crest scheme?
They were special payments. They've probably come out of the social. It wouldn't have been Crest scheme. It was Social Security budget.
Yes, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, just we have there's an ongoing process whereby we help repatriate people on a very low level all the time, and they're processed through the income support budget, and they come out of the income and they're paid for through the income support budget.
Thanks for that. Do you have any predictions about how many of the people that currently receiving Crest are likely to still be unemployed at the end of August when the scheme finishes?
I would say no. As Ian said, they're all looking at the moment. They're looking for work. They obviously would be confident. What have they got? Just under 4 weeks now till the money runs out. The scheme finishes. So I don't know. And again, how far do you push someone? You don't want to be saying, you know, are you working? If you're not, you've got to leave. I mean, we can't do that, and we want to do that. So they must have a plan, I'm presuming.
So one of the things, sorry, Deputy, one of the things about the Crest scheme, of course, is that unlike income support, it's not means tested. We've put in this, the Minister's put this scheme in to help provide a level of financial support, but we don't know the backgrounds of individuals. They may have other incomes, other assets from that they can sustain themselves even if they haven't got work. That's one of the, I suppose, the challenges of doing a scheme like that and trying to keep it simple and do it very quickly, is we haven't done the same sort of means testing as we would do for somebody who's been here 5 years and on income support.
I appreciate that, but there are going to be some people, aren't there, who are not going to be able to support themselves. Are you going to be able to offer some support under a different guise, or are you going to be able to assist people even when the scheme's finished to repatriate?
Oh, the repatriation's been there, as Sue has said. It's one of those things for different reasons. Over the years, people find themselves destitute in Jersey and they want to get home, and that's always look, before COVID, it's been the hard 5 years. I've supported and represented people over the years, sometimes 6 months before, and different circumstances. I've got the department to agree to income support. That's the law. That's been the law since it came in 2008. It was the same under welfare, the same amount of years before you get a penny from your parish. So, you know, I think that I've said to the officers, these 120 people, they need to be being told exactly what they were going to get at the end of August, and it's what they would have got with no COVID. And unfortunately, Trevor, that is nothing.
Yeah, I accept that.
I'm not saying there are other places. I've known people that stay in Jersey and they live and they get support. You know, it's not heard of, but it wouldn't be income support, no.
No, but have you had any concerns expressed by current recipients about the 31st of August deadline? Have you had any feedback from people who will be losing that financial support?
I haven't personally. I don't know. As I say, the department wrote to them all, and they're in contact on the phone because we are concerned. I don't want them to turn around and say, "Oh, no, we didn't know this." They absolutely know because they're spoken to, not just the letter. They're spoken to. As Ian just said, have they got money or some sort of other income that might be able to keep them hereafter, or a partner that's going to support them? All this because it's not means tested. It was put together quick. It did exactly what we wanted it to do. Make sure people had enough money for a roof over their head. Well, obviously, but food on the table. That was the main thing, that they could survive those COVID lockdown months. And Ian might be more. He did turn his light on. He's turned it off again. He might know, but I'm not sure we would go down in that far detail. As long as we're making sure they know it's finishing.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, have you had any complaints about the scheme from the general public or from the recipients of the scheme?
Me personally, no. And I've actually people. The general consensus is I'm so glad that this, well, not the government, the states of Jersey helped. When you look around the world and saw people literally put on streets in countries because they weren't from there, disgusting. We did, that was never going to happen to me, and it wasn't going to ever happen under the rest of council. It was one of the very high level decisions we made very early on. How we was going to do it, we didn't know, but they all came together. But there might be an individual, but not particularly, no, not at all, really. No one's come to me about the CREST scheme as a minister and said, this is absolutely terrible, again, Ian might want to elaborate on that, but definitely not as a minister.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Minister. And I'm going to pass you over to Deputy Alves. She gets a second go at this, so. Deputy Alves. Deputy Alves.
Yes, sorry, my dog's going a bit crazy in the background. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the co-funded payroll scheme. Do you have a breakdown of the participating companies that provided employer accommodation?
I don't actually run the co-funded payroll scheme. Ian does.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I haven't got that information, so I didn't know how detailed you were going to go. Your question was the companies who provide accommodation who are on the pay-funded scheme. I don't even know if Ian would have that, or he wouldn't. I doubt if he'd have it today, but he might better get hold of it. Ian, do you?
No. So the businesses who are claiming, of course, are claiming as the business, and they're claiming for individuals based upon what they've paid for people. They're not claiming, it's not the individuals themselves who are claiming. So that's the first thing. The minister's right. It's not actually the Social Security Minister's scheme, it's the Treasury Minister's scheme, and Customer Local Services are administrating it on the Treasury Minister's behalf. And as we mentioned earlier, the level of information we have around tide or staff accommodation is not very good. We've been asked the question before and not been able to provide an answer. There's no law that actually requires the registration of staff accommodation specifically, and therefore we don't have a register that we can verify it against. So unfortunately, we don't have that information, Deputy.
Okay, thank you. So do you have forecasts for unemployment rates resulting from the phasing out of the co-funded payroll scheme employer subsidies?
So we have the latest fiscal policy panel forecasts that have come out yesterday. They talk about the changes in employment. That's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily result in unemployment, but there's a suggestion there that unemployment over the winter would get would increase Obviously, we're not seeing that at the moment. We're seeing a reduction. The original forecasts we had from the previous fiscal policy panel predictions from the chief economist suggested that the unemployment would be much higher than it is now, much higher than it got to, and also would still be very high at the end of this year, but would have reduced. So we've yet to have an updated unemployment forecast based on yesterday's figures. But you would expect, with all the measures that are taking place, one would hope that things would continue to improve, although the island does tend to have a bit of seasonality in terms of its unemployment. We tend to see more people being unemployed in January, February time after the Christmas season, and also in around October, November time when the summer season ends. But how that works this year is difficult to predict given the coronavirus situation, but it's just pleasing to see unemployment dropping every week, and that's very positive for those individuals and their families.
Okay, thank you. And my last question on this section is it was recently announced that the scheme will have an estimated cost of 93 million by the end of August. It was further announced that it will cost an additional 26 to 53 million up until March 2021. So if the scheme costs an additional 53 million, is it correct that this will bring the potential total cost to 146 million pounds? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is, if you add those two together, I think the scheme, what it was budgeted, so you have to budget when the original scheme was budgeted for, it was budgeted for lots of more people to be claiming, I think. So I think those two figures added together are more than the original, but they're not so scary as the officers or the ministers had sort of looked at. But Ian, is that right? 146 million to the end of March next year, if everyone claims, that is. So again, or is that just an estimate?
Yeah, I think the forecasts have. So you're right, Minister, that the original forecasts were much higher, based upon a much higher level of claiming. We've seen each month so far that the actual number of people claiming and the amounts has just reduced slightly, and that's positive because that shows that the scheme's working and the businesses are able to get back into their normal operating positions. The forecasts going beyond August have been perhaps more realistic than the original ones, based upon obviously a number of months operations, but they are still forecasts, and the forecasts are often proved to be wrong. But obviously, and also forecasting with quite a different scheme, the scheme does change quite a bit in the next 6 months. And obviously we all hope the businesses don't need it, because if they're doing well and the economy is recovering, then hopefully very few businesses will end up claiming it. But ultimately, I think the numbers you've quoted are the numbers that were issued in the press release, I think. So.
Okay, thank you. And my final couple of questions are on the family-friendly legislation, the Appointed Day Act. So please, can you provide an update on the implementation of the family-friendly legislation since it was brought into force on the 28th of June this year? Thank you.
Well, it was only able to be brought in because we're doing a sort of secondary non-statutory scheme to pay the employer the 6 weeks wages for dad. And that's going okay. Don't think too many have applied, but it's there if they need it. That's the reason I could get the scheme in. I asked yesterday, yeah, all the things, the 32 weeks, the new benefits are actually being worked on, and that again, we want to get that to you first. Lodged probably late in the year, could even be December, and the debate early January, which I checked, we're still on that timescale, which I told you last time, I think, but I had to check myself because, now you think COVID is over, but there's so much to be done. But yeah, that's Lord Draftman's got on it, and it's being worked on, so it's all on time.
Okay, and have employers or employees reported any issues with the operation of the new legislation in practice?
They would normally go through Jack's. I haven't heard anything because it's so new, but the scheme seems to be working fine, but that's all about pay. I suppose you're talking about antenatal appointments, breastfeeding and everything. I haven't. Sue might have a bit more of an update, but as I say, I've been off the island for a couple of weeks, but I haven't personally, no, Deputy. But have we got an update, Sue?
I can't give you any more update than that. Issues have come through Jax, so all I can tell you is negative news, i.e. we haven't heard from Jax about anything which is causing a problem. So we assume that things are working okay. It's obviously very early days, and we'll just keep the situation under review.
Okay, and finally from me, at the last quarterly
I
hearing.
just wanted to say, can I thank all the panels, I haven't seen you all together, for supporting all of that to go through in the middle of COVID. It was really, really refreshing, but I haven't been able to thank you all separately. So I'm thanking you all together. So thanks so much for that support. Thank you.
Thank you, you're very welcome. And so just finally, at the last quarterly hearing on the 5th of May, you stated that there were no plans to introduce any additional benefits to parents who give birth after July 2020. Is this still the case?
Yeah, because ideally everything would have come in together, but that working on with the Lord Jarvis and everything just completely fell away. So I could have waited, and then nobody would have got the year, and it would, you know, it would have, or do the small scheme. But that will all be in the legislation that's coming to you, as you will see it first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Minister.
Sorry, I was just going to say we've got a couple more questions which we're going to, if it's okay with you, Minister, we'll send them to you for written responses, because I'm conscious of the time and we have another briefing at 1:45. I know that Deputy Pamplin had wanted to just a final question in relation to a matter to clarify something. And if there was anything else that anybody finally had a question or query on, then we could take those and then finish if that's in order.
Yeah, yeah, there's a meeting going on, but yeah, a couple of minutes. It's my fault. We started late. I had no camera, so yeah, absolutely, Deputy Pamplin.
No, I just want to pick up, Minister, on what I was talking about earlier in targeting extra support. I mentioned earlier income support, long-term capacity, didn't I, earlier? But another issue that it's coming along, and I've had a couple of these, and a couple of states members have also raised this with me because they knew today we were having this. They're people that fall into this bracket, that people from 18 but under 25 who are at home with their parents, and for whatever reason I've either not found employment or lost jobs, but equally maybe suffering from long-term physical or mental health, and equally the parents, because they no longer can claim child relief tax because they're over 18, and let's say the working parent, this case a single mum, and the case I'm thinking of, she's had a reduction in her wage at the same time, but is struggling to support. So I'm just wondering if there's any work or any scheme that you as a department could look at and support these brackets of people where these 18 to 25s are living at home, being supported by their parents for whatever the reason is, but the parents are in financial hardship, even though they may have a income, and it may just slightly just put them over the threshold for income support, but are starting to feel the pinch. Is there anything there that could be looked at in supporting those families?
Well, I've had this question, I think, in the Assembly, and I've had this question before. Now, funny enough, when income support came in, it did give some money to, I think, were they just income support? So every child on 18 to 25 who were on income support would have got the extra, the family would have got the extra 100, or they would have got it. I think my answer is, Kevin, you've seen how much the budget is out of what it should have been. It will just either I keep the same budget and spread it slightly thinner, or I decide that the parents of the 18 to 25, now, which is just above, support them, and there's many out there. So I don't know. I'm not looking at anything because, as I say, the money will have to come from somewhere, and it might spread thin, take it away from Peter to give it to Paul. But look, you're not the first person. Deputy Morell asked me this question. Deputy Ward asked me this question. And if this is a massive issue, can you get together and get me some evidence? I don't need the names. I just need to know the problem. And I really need to know the problem. Because I can't solve a problem for 4 or 5 families. Are you talking 500 families, 100 families? Do you see what I mean, Deputy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. Again, you know me, if I've got a case, and your department have always been very good like this, if I've got a couple of people who fall into this bracket, and if it's something you would look at, especially this one family, she's a single mum, she's working, she's just lost £600 per month because of the increase in tax payments. The poor child has got severe a situation with her mental health, and suddenly has got to support her because she can't get out the house, she can't work. So if there's these cases that are coming about because of this unique situation we find ourselves, that you will look at and see if there's any support that you can find. And maybe it's not, as you say, it's not a wide thing, but these families who really are saying, look, we've never asked for handouts before, but we really are in a situation. Will you look at it?
Oh, Kevin, Deputy Pamplin, yes. Look, now you've explained. If each case, you know, you send that case to me and copy in Kim Baker, we will get it to the right people. And if it isn't just, it might not be just financial help. There might be something else that's out there we don't know about. But absolutely look at that. But I know the question, and it's just one of those. And you know, and a lot of these 18 to 25-year-olds, or even maybe over from, not the 25 so much, but possibly coming home from uni this year, their summer jobs wasn't there. So you know that. But see, the absolute COVID message was roof overhead, food in. That I know. And now that things are opening up, these people, these youngsters, are maybe the ones that are not. But we are doing a lot of work to make sure that the businesses can take on these youngsters. They don't need to have been actively seeking work for 6 months, so they can take them on now. So let's hope that helps. But that specific case that you described seems, you know, there'd be complications in. Don't like to get into too many, you know, individual cases in a hearing like that, but absolutely we will talk to you and I can meet with you or whatever. I have no problem with that at all.
Okay, I think that it's a good step forward because we don't know, we don't have a crystal ball what's out there, and I think that's a good message to put out. Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Good to see you. And that's it. I'll hand back to Chair to wrap up.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for all those questions and answers, and for your contribution this afternoon. And no doubt look forward to seeing you in another 3 months. And as I said, we'll put the final 3 questions that we wanted we wanted updates on in a form of writing in order that we can get a response from you. Thank you very much all.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, team.
Thank you, panel. Have a lovely weekend if I don't see you before.